Welcome to Love Vocals Nation, the podcast that delves deep into the hearts and souls of extraordinary artists who've touched our lives with their talent and passion. Today's guest is a name that resonates with music lovers around the globe. With a career that spans over 4 decades, this iconic figure has left an indelible mark in the music industry, both as a solo artist and as one half of the renowned duo Shakespeare's Sister. Throughout her career, our guest has collaborated with legendary artists like Eric Clapton, Elton John, Aretha Franklin, Bob Seger, to name but a few. Her contribution as a songwriter has earned her critical acclaim and numerous accolades, including Grammy Award nominations and Ivor Novello Awards. Love Vocals is thrilled to welcome a true musical icon and superstar. Give a warm, warm welcome to the incredible Marcella Detroit.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yay! Welcome, Marcella. It's a massive honor to have you today. How are you doing today?
A little bit frazzled today. So I'm trying to leave reality behind so I can be completely here with you.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love it.
That's lovely. We really appreciate you here with us.
Yeah.
I am super interested, obviously, to dive deep into your musical journey. So I wanted to start from the beginning and ask you, how did everything start from you? Maybe you can tell us your backstory. How did you get into music?
Well, I started in music when I was a child, really, from the time I was 4 or 5.
Wow.
And my father, but not professionally, obviously, although some people do that. But yeah, my father and I used to sing harmonies together. And so when I started school, anytime there was music involved, like in choirs and choruses and duos, trios, quartets, quintets, whatever, whenever I had an opportunity to sing, that's what I chose to do. And my first instrument was violin when I was 7. Wow. And my father bought me an accordion, and then he bought me a guitar, and they bought me an electric guitar when I was like 11, and an amp, and then guitar and harmonica. My father taught me how to play the ukulele, and I love the ukulele. He dabbled in music, but he wasn't professional. He was a fine artist though, but he had to give it up to support the family. So flash forward to going through school and always being in talent shows and stuff. When I was 18, and after I had gone through some serious emotional stuff, like hormonal stuff, in my angst-ridden teenage years, and I came out of a really abusive relationship, like a physically abusive relationship where, not to be negative, but this guy he tried to kill me, basically.
Oh, Marcella, you're kidding.
My guitar, and he said, and the police were there. I took your guitar and you better come out. I was hiding in a neighbor's house.
Oh my God.
Wow. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But so my music always gave me so much comfort. And there was this one particular day after that incident that I was sitting in this park in Detroit, and I was playing my guitar, as I did a lot because I was a hippie. And
wow.
And we used to gather around and sing and hang out and do all kinds of stupid stuff. But anyway, so this one day I was singing in this park in Michigan, near Detroit, in like northern Detroit, and I looked up at the sky. The sun was shining on me, and I felt so good and grateful to have my music. And I remember looking up at the sky and saying, "This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life."
Wow!
Amazing.
And then ever since I made that decision, then things started happening. The universe heard me.
Yeah,
and I put it on a local radio station, and I just said, "Girl singer looking for blues band." And I haven't really stopped since. It was on this local radio station where you were able to put like wanted ads in, and so that's that's how it started.
All right, that's incredible. First of all, your dad seems to be amazing, so good, and I have similar experience. My father is also like a musician, but he never went like professionally. So I think we have very common sense to that. And I love that you actually, I don't know, talk to the universe, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I do.
Music is what you really want to, and you actually went for it. That's incredible. So
Right. So you
you
started
should be very proud of
manifesting
that.
it. Yeah, I know. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
amazing.
Amazing that you had a similar experience with your
Mm.
father. He was
Yeah,
very,
yeah, he
yeah,
definitely introduced me as well. So
yeah.
bless the fathers for that.
When I said to my dad, you know, when I got an offer to move away from Detroit,
Mm.
go work with in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was a big budding music scene, my father said to me, "Well, you know, your chances of making it are 1,000,000 to 1." And I just looked at him and I said, "Watch me."
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yes.
it.
Sometimes you need to hear those things because it
Yeah.
pushes you to the right direction. You want to prove people wrong. For
Yeah.
some reason you
Yeah.
do,
I don't
you
know if
know.
that's a really solid foundation to
Yeah, maybe not.
begin your career. However, it is very motivational.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and that wasn't the only thing that was motivating me to, you know, to prove
Yeah.
that I could do something. But it's just something in my heart that I needed to do and I needed to pursue for my own
Hmm.
well-being, for my own sanity, for my own fulfillment, to my own joy. You know,
Yeah.
music brought me all of that.
Hmm. Okay. And you mentioned, you know, you came into that radio station. You were looking for, you know, a singer for the blues band, right?
Yeah.
So what happened after?
Well, I got a call from this band that
Mhm.
lived about 45 minutes away, and they were called the Bad Luck and Troubles Blues Band.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Love it.
so cliched, right?
Yeah.
So that was when I moved out of my house with my
Mm.
parents the first time. I just took my bed and I was moving in with 12 guys. And
Wow.
12 guys. Wow,
totally,
Marcella.
I wasn't interested in any of the guys, you know, for
Okay.
a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually very frightened of men because of what happened with
Yeah.
my
Yeah. I can
recent
imagine.
experience. So I just wanted to do my music. I didn't really care. I didn't really have much money. I was living on these horrible little cakes called Twinkies because I didn't really have enough money to buy proper food. And we would
Yeah.
just, you know, we'd rehearse and we'd do gigs. And yeah, that was the beginning of my work around the Detroit area.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. So yeah, so you got into the music in this way, going into a band, and that took you like further and further. So
Mhm.
when in your career did it actually turn into something serious? Like when did that like first record deal happen?
Well, as I moved my way up the ranks in Detroit, I was in several bands, a band called Loki, a band called Radio King, where we did a lot of soul, R&B stuff. And then I met this band called Julia, who were doing really well in the Detroit area, and they were touring a lot in the Midwest. So I went to an audition, they invited me to join, and I ended up being in this band with this guy named Bill Mueller, who later became Blue Miller due to a typo by his record label.
Oh, no way.
I'll tell you all about
That's awesome.
but he was a phenomenal guitarist and songwriter. So he and I started writing. That was my first. I had written songs before. Like I started writing songs when I was 12, but Bill and I started writing. So we were playing a lot of, you know, touring a lot around the Midwest, and so our big break though was us. We were opening for David Bowie in Detroit.
Wow.
Whoa, Marcella, that was
How did that
awesome.
happen? Like, was it just like
Well, we
somebody
had a
knew
good-
somebody, or?
Well, we had a booking agent, you know, and
Okay.
they gave us the gig. And then we were discovered by Bob Seger's manager. And he had us audition for Bob because Bob was looking for a new band. So that's how I got into Bob Seger's band.
Yeah.
Once I made the decision to get into it, like seriously, everything started happening. So yeah, then I was working with Bob Seger for a
Wild.
few years, and he fired the original Julia rhythm section, you know, the bass player and drummer, and then he hired these guys from Tulsa, Oklahoma, a guy named Jamie Oldacre at the drummer, and Dick Sims, a keyboard player. And I worked with them. We became really, really good friends, and we were writing music together and hanging out. And they said, you know, after this ends, you should move to Tulsa because, well, that's where Shelter Records was and Leon Russell. And I was such a huge fan of Leon Russell. I mean, I had his records all over my bedroom walls.
Wow.
And my mother used to laugh at me. She'd come in my room and, who is this guy? I mean, he's quite handsome, but also just kind of strange and but a brilliant musician, part of the wrecking crew. And my mom, you know, was making fun of him, and I'm like, I'm gonna sing with him one day. And she was like, yeah, oh, that's nice, honey. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I was invited to move to Tulsa, which I did. And we were like the big fish in the little pond. Everybody would come and see us play, including Leon, who I had gone to see every time he came to Detroit. Every time. I was such a huge fan, and I wanted to be one of those girls that were his backing singers. And I wanted to be that featured girl. So anyway, Leon would come and sit in with us, J.J. Cale, people from the Gap Band, and we were getting quite well known.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was after about only a year after being there, we were, like I said, discovered by Leon and also by Carl Radel, the incredible bass player for Derek and the Dominoes. Eric was great because, you know, he was recovering from his heroin addiction. So he called Carl and said, I really want to get back into, you know, touring and recording, and I want to put a band together. And he said, well, you should come and check out these guys. And that was us.
Amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. How did you feel?
Well, when Eric came to Tulsa and sat in with us at this club called Kane's Ballroom, I was just like, wow, I couldn't believe it, you know, because first of all, Leon Russell and becoming close with Leon Russell, that was one thing. And I was, you know, you set goals, but you know, when they actually happen, it's like magical, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was completely magical. And I don't know, I was so lucky to meet these guys from Tulsa and for them to invite me to go live in this budding music scene. It was just phenomenal. But yeah, I ended up, what happened was Leon Russell asked me to go on tour with him, and I wanted to do that so bad. But when Eric came to Tulsa, I had already been asked by Leon to be in his band. And plus I was completely enamored with him. I thought I was in love with him, but I think I was infatuated, really, because he was so charismatic. And then I was the featured girl on the tour singing the special song. Band, and the Gap Band was the backing band. But I chose to do that, even though Eric asked all of us to come and be in his band. So Off My Friends went to work with Eric Clapton and tour the world and do his comeback album 461 Ocean Boulevard. I turned that down to work with Leon, and
wow,
I was in love with him, and I wanted to do it. So after that ended, the relationship and the tour, my friends invited me to join them in Jamaica, working with Eric on the second album. And I went down to Jamaica and ended up singing on about 5 or 6 songs on the There's One in Every Crowd album. And I was asked to join the band about 5 days later.
Incredible.
Wow, Marcella, that's amazing.
I think the universe is definitely
it was meant to be, wasn't it?
It was meant to be. Like, even if you turned that down, it came back to you.
I know.
I know. Crazy. I mean, I had, you know, some of my family members, you know, aunts and uncles would say, where did all this talent come from? You know, no one else in the family had it. Nobody else had this desire, except I found out that my great-grandfather played violin, which was my first instrument. He was a concert violinist, but nobody else in the family was in entertainment. So it was unusual. But yeah, the universe heard me, and that was it. I was
Yep,
on.
it definitely did. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That's incredible.
That
What
is
a
an incredible
story.
story. I know.
Like looking back on your whole musical journey, who was your biggest idol like throughout your whole life? Do you have like anyone you really looked up to?
Mm. Well, as far as vocally, I loved Aretha Franklin and still
Yeah.
do. She was my vocal idol.
Yeah.
I also loved Joni Mitchell, and
Mhm.
I really loved her lyrics and her artistry. But Aretha for me was it.
Right.
I also,
Right.
you know, I also loved the blues guys, and I used to sneak out of my parents' home and steal their car with fake ID and go to these clubs, like in really bad parts of Detroit. This was before I pursued my career, but I snuck into a club to see John Lee Hooker at around midnight, and I was the only person alone. I was the only white girl there, but I was
Wow.
oh,
Yeah.
believe it, I was just soaking it up. He was so good. And
Yeah.
I loved Lead Belly, you know, I loved Muddy Waters. I
Wow.
loved Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. And I loved Motown, you know. I had all those influences going on around me all the
Yeah.
time.
And that was one of my questions, actually, because obviously you grew up in Detroit. I live in Detroit now, ironically, but you know, I just thought, you know, it's an amazing city with a really rich musical heritage. And I just wondered, you know, how many influences did you get from living in that kind of environment?
Everything, just everything. You know, on the radio, when my mom would drive me to school, the radio would always be on. It would be just Motown from, you know, morning till when I got home. You know, the radio would always be on at home. My parents loved music, so it would always be playing at some point. It was very much Motown, but then I got into blues and folk blues and rock and roll and, you know, Bowie and Alice Cooper and, you know, more kind of mind expanding stuff.
So you mentioned the band Julia. So what kind of music were they playing that they got picked up?
Well, the name of the band Julia was named after the Beatles song Julia.
Oh, right. Okay. I was going to ask that, actually. Yeah.
But the Beatles were their biggest influence, and one of my biggest influence as well. Before that, it was Motown blues, but you know, the Beatles kind of used blues in their music. They were very inspired by all those blues guys anyway. Blues and rock and roll and Chuck Berry and, you know, you name it. They kind of started playing clubs in Germany, playing all that stuff, and even wrote their own. But yeah, Julia was very influenced by the Beatles. We did a lot of Beatles songs, a lot of Beatles covers, but and I started writing our own songs.
Very cool. You said you started writing age 12.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Sorry, I know we're taking you back a little bit from where you are now, but so age 12, what was the inspiration? Did you just pick up that ukulele and start playing, or which instrument was it?
Guitar. My father made a guitar as well. I had a 12-string, which it was so hard to play. It used to kill my fingers. But well, the inspiration behind the first song was about a boy that I really like, you know, unrequited love, like wanting to be with this guy, but him not really knowing that I existed. So.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever record that one, or was it just one that you remember?
No, once I did like a live stream of it, but it's not a great song, but it was, you know, it was a song. It was a complete song.
Yeah.
Beginning to end.
Your first song.
That's amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
But I was interested when you were talking there, you were saying that Bob Seger kind of got rid of some of the players in Julia.
Yeah.
Is that so? But was Julia supporting Bob Seger and his band, or did that become the band, or why did he choose to do that?
I guess he wasn't happy with, you know,
players,
what they were doing. Yeah.
Right.
So he fired the drummer and the bass player, and he hired these guys from Oklahoma.
Wow.
That Jamie Oldacre and Dick Sims. Dick was a keyboard player, but he played Hammond, but he kicked bass. You know, there, if you play Hammond, you have bass pedals that you can play.
Yes.
We didn't even need a bass player because Dick was playing keyboards and kicking bass.
All
So
right.
Yeah.
Bob, you know, wanted a slightly different feel, so he hired these guys, and they were unbelievable, man. They were.
Was that hard? Was that hard, kind of seeing the other guys go?
Well, yeah, because you know we loved them. They were friends.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill was closer to them than I was. You know, they were all a unit like for years before I joined their band. So it was difficult for all of them. Probably a sense of betrayal in a way. You know.
Yeah, totally.
I was sad, and I didn't really know what to expect. But when these, you know, when these guys started playing, I was like, oh
wow, I get it now. That's brilliant.
Even though the other guys were great, and they were impeccable with their playing, and they did incredible. You know, they were great with covering Beatles stuff and all the other covers. Like we did some Rolling Stones stuff as well, and rock and roll. You know, a lot of rock and roll stuff. So.
Love it.
Brilliant. I love that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go into that you had like experienced like massive success as being a part of the duo Shakespeare's Sister. So looking back at that, what were some of the most challenging moments that you faced during that time, and how did you navigate them?
How did I navigate them? Well, you know, that the fact that another thing, you know, that happened to me, like all by chance, how I met these guys from Tulsa by working with Bob Seger and him hiring these guys. And all of a sudden I meet these guys, and then I transport myself there. This was also, Shakespeare's Sister was like just such a chance thing. My friend, Richard Feldman, who wrote some hit songs for Clapton, like Promises, and I helped him write part of that. Richard had a studio here in LA, in like a suburb of LA, and one day he noticed he was getting new neighbors, and it was Siobhan Fahey of Bananarama and Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics. They had recently been married, and she was expecting her first child. So Richard went to introduce himself, saying, "Hey, I've got a studio in my house." Not that Dave wasn't building like a world-class studio, so but so he introduced himself, and you know, the music was so different what Siobhan was doing. He said he was working with her for a while, and he said, you should, I would like you to come and work with us, because I think your voices would work really well together. So I came over and I started adding, you know, some backing vocals and playing guitar and harmonica and whatever seemed to fit. But within that whole thing, because it was very different musically from what I was used to doing, you know, I was working with Eric Clapton and doing, you know, rock and roll. I was a real purist about what I had done. I had finished touring with George Duke and Stanley Clarke. I mean, we're talking R&B, like borderline jazz. I was in LA doing a lot of session work for so many different people, from rock and roll to jazz to R&B. So within that whole framework of Shakespeare's Sister, it was kind of challenging in a way to create my own identity. It was Siobhan's band, and it was an idea that she had, what she wanted to break away from Bananarama and the kind of, you know, candy pop that they were doing. She wanted to do something that was taken more seriously. And it was so very well accepted. Like the first album we did, Sacred Heart, and it was very well accepted, and I was just like a hired hand for that. But then by the time we started the second album, the label and the management were like, we want Marcy to be a 50% member, an equal member of the band. So what was hard navigating was that it was Siobhan's band, yes, but when I became a 50% member, it was still really only on paper.
Right.
You know? It wasn't, I mean, Siobhan and I started the second album, just she and I, creating at my home studio here, like about a half a mile from where I live now. And, you know, working out my place and my identity within the band, and we had some serious, like there was some serious acrimony, especially when Stay, which was written, and it was like a concept album, that whole Hormone of Yours album. But then when it became a huge hit, that was really when the trouble began between us.
Why do you think that happened? What made that so difficult?
Because she said to me the minute it was announced by the label, she said to me, "I don't think Stay represents Shakespeare's sister." And she went, after we were walking back from an interview that we had done a photo shoot this one day, and we were walking back to try and catch a cab. There were no cabs around. And so she just started talking to me about 45 minutes about how, "I really don't feel Stay represents Shakespeare's sister. I don't think it should be a single." And I was just like, well, we wrote it together. I mean, you know, it's just giving me, that was the only song that I was really vocally featured on it and had like a
Right.
vocal.
Yeah.
So obviously, I guess that was a problem. And I don't know, because, you know, she wouldn't really communicate much more than that. Once it was announced, that was it. There was just problems whenever we did interviews about it, and she refused to come with me to do a radio tour to promote it. So
Right.
so I went all around England and Scotland on my own, playing my guitar and doing the song on my own. It's really unfortunate, you know, that it happened that way.
What I hear, I actually wanted to go into talking about Stay, because it became such a massive hit.
Yeah.
It reached #1 in the UK charts for 8 weeks, and that's incredible.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. So even if all that happened, can you share with us like the emotions and personal experience that inspired the creation of that powerful and soulful ballad?
Well, thinking about it, like I said, the album was a concept album. Siobhan's husband, Dave, found this movie. It was so cheesy and so funny, called Catwomen of the Moon. It was an American a sci-fi movie. And we wanted to buy the rights to the film and superimpose ourselves into it. But the record label were not having it. They were like, "Oh no, it's too expensive to get the rights." But we still used the movie as inspiration for the album. And we had taken on different characters and writing the songs. There was a scene where the character I had taken on, I had fallen in love with this earthling that came to the moon. We were these really strong kind of Amazonian women that lived on the moon, and very powerful.
Yeah.
And so these earthlings came, and I fell in love with one of them, my character, and then he said that he had to leave and go back to Earth. So that's how Stay With Me.
Stay with me. Yeah.
Yeah. It was one morning, on a Sunday morning at about 9:30 in the morning, there's a knock on our door. I'm like still asleep. My husband comes to the room. Hey, Dave and Siobhan are here. They really want to talk to you. They have an idea for a song. So I get up. My husband hands me a cup of coffee. I go into my studio and I meet them. And Dave is like, "Oh, Marcy, you know, Dave used to have these amazing parties where we would all, by the end, we'd all be singing and jamming. Marcy, you know how you always sing these beautiful ballads at our parties? Well, I've created one for you for album." And he didn't have the title yet.
Okay.
So he started playing and singing, you know, "If this world is wearing thin and we're thinking else." He goes through the whole thing. And when it gets to the chorus, I just start singing, "Stay with me, stay with me." And then we're like, wow. Okay. So we've got that. And then we hammered out the second verse. And then Dave says, "Well, now we have to create a middle eight for Siobhan to sing." And we did that. And yeah, that's how it started.
What a story.
For that so vividly when growing up. And I'm not joking. For me, that was Shakespeare's sister.
Yeah.
That was Shakespeare's sister.
Yeah.
And I think you'll probably find, I'm sure you've talked to loads of people about this, but you know, they probably think the same thing. It was amazing. And it was so innovative for the time, because I just remember it was so different.
Yeah.
And moving and sad, and when you delivered that chorus, it's like it was like you could holding a breath. No, seriously, Marcella, it was unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
it still is unbelievable today.
Yeah, yeah.
I still hear it on the radio,
Yeah, no,
over and over again. So
yeah, I've seen all these like reaction videos to it, introducing it to all these.
Yes, this new gen.
Yeah.
They go.
Yeah, listen what that girl.
I know.
yeah.
I know.
It's so funny.
So one of the things I want to kind of ask you about now was, because obviously I was watching a little video about I was thinking it was a BBC interview you did, and that Pete Tong, obviously your A&R guy at the time, who liked speeding stuff up, and there was you singing this in the key of G, suddenly having to go to high D sharp.
Well, actually, I had to go to a high F whenever I did it live.
Really?
Actually, in those days we had vary speed, but we didn't have pitch control.
Correct. So that's right. That's right.
The minute you change the speed of something,
yeah.
Well, now I'm singing, instead of singing in G, I'm singing in A flat. Right.
Wow.
And so when I hit the high note, when I did it on the record, it was a D over high C. Actually, wait, I'm wrong. It was an E, because I went from the E down to that high note I hit as an E, and I go down to a D. So when I'm doing it live, we're in A flat because of Pete's request, and so I'm actually having to hit an F.
How did you feel about that? That you had
I don't know. I was just like, I hope it works.
Well, it was unbelievable. So for the folks listening out there, we're going to show you a little clip of this amazing vocal that happens. Let's have a look at that clip.
If this world is wearing thin and you're thinking of escape, I'll go anywhere with you. Just wrap me up in chains. But if you try to go alone, don't think I'll understand. Stay with me. Stay with me.
Your voice is totally amazing. I kid you not. It blew me away.
It still blows me away.
Yeah, it blows me away. And I was really I was quite actually interested when I saw that Ghost just recently with Patrick Wilson had just done a cover of it. And how did you feel about that rendition?
Well, I was notified about it on Facebook. Somebody said, "Hey, Marcy, this band it's in this Insidious 2 movie, The Red Door." I'm like, what? Wait, Ghost. Well, first of all, I asked my son, he's 32. I'm like, dude, have you heard of Ghost? He's like, yeah. Why, Mom? Our song. And he's like, whoa, that's awesome.
Oh, wow.
And, I was sent a link, and actually Ghost tagged us in it, and I just read a little article about it. I'm totally impressed, and it boosted our Spotify streams by 100,000.
No way! Yeah, congratulations!
Congratulations!
Yay.
Not that it means a lot, as you guys know. I mean, a Spotify.
But
we all know about that.
Well, I'll tell you what I love about it. As you were saying, that the new gen gets to hear the amazing tracks that you've written, Marcella,
Yeah.
truly. But so for me, I was like, oh, this is great. It's a new gen are going to hear this stuff. So
Totally,
Yeah.
completely agree, and I was really excited about that. And I got on and thanked Ghost and tagged them, and actually
yeah,
they tagged us in a recent post on their Facebook page. So
Yeah.
that was really cool.
that is
That's
brilliant.
amazing.
Yep,
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm so sorry to see you upset about you know, the whole thing about stay, and it should be such a thing that to celebrate. And a funny part, I'm just gonna say this is a funny part, because we're talking with a lot of different artists, and everyone that we kind of talk to, their biggest hit, like one of the biggest hit that they've released. For example, we talked with Amanda Wilson, who released a bromance with Avicii, you know, and that became a massive, his biggest hit, for example.
Wow.
And then other artists, like with their biggest hit, they all seems to have like something going on with either like a label or a producer they work with, and it's just really upsetting. And I'm just, it's a weird trend that I'm seeing. I just wanted to say that it's very
Yeah.
strange.
It's always been there, you know. I mean, on one hand, I understand, because it, you know, it was Siobhan's band. It was her brainchild. I had to fit into it and figure out, well, how am I going? You know, who am I going to be in this? And how, you know, how am I going to handle this? And so, you know, all of a sudden comes this song which takes the focus away from what she wants it to be. But it, you know, looking back, it was still about her, because because it's the two of us. When she makes that entrance in the video, it's just like completely shocking, and she just killed it. She did an amazing job with it and really made it her own. So yeah, I guess, you know, I cried because it just makes me sad. Like, it was such a great time, and it could have been so
It could have been, yeah.
There was all this angst. It was, you know, it came out in unfortunate places.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That just
So sorry too.
But that's not the first time it's ever happened in a band.
No, it isn't. No, it happens more often than not, unfortunately.
Yes. I watched a few interviews about the ending with Shakespeare's sister, and that must have been like really emotional, difficult for you. How did you find the strength to go through it all during those times, and what lessons did you learn from them?
Well, you mean the actual way that it ended? Like when it was announced at an awards show, the Ivor Novello Awards, we received
yeah, that's right.
award for Best Album of the Year, which is a highly prestigious
Huge thing. Yeah,
it is.
And I was up there on the podium, and I received the award. I was there with Dave Stewart, and was Siobhan's publisher, and he read a letter from her saying that I wish Marcy well for the future, all is well that ends well. And that's the first that I heard of it, except
goodness.
Yeah, right
That's
before I went on
shocking.
stage, her manager came by and like, she's going to do it. She's going to do it today. I'm like, what? Okay. So then, you know, this letter was read in front of everybody in the industry, and I was
terrible.
yeah, I was really
oh my God.
and you know, she was going through some of her own personal stuff.
Right.
When she explained it to me, I was like, okay, I get it. But still, it was painful for me. I mean, all the stuff, all the angst that I had to deal with, you know, the whole time working together during that initial time, doing the 2 albums, and the tremendous success, but the tremendous problems within it. I just remember going back to my table, and I was just like silently sobbing. Like, I knew I was going to do my own album next, because Siobhan said, I want to take a break and be with my family. You know, she had 2 young children, and she wanted to spend more time with her family. I understood that. So I was preparing to do my own album, and I was writing while we were on the road for my Jewel album, what would become my Jewel album.
Yeah.
So I knew, but I didn't know that we were never going to work together again, or never speak after that for 26 years. For a few minutes, I was almost unconscious, like taking it in. But But you know, I was ready, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my record, and then I did my Jewel album. It didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it to, but I still had I Believe, which was pretty successful, and I was proud of it because it was a song that I wrote on my own, completely.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up I Believe, because I Believe is actually one of my favorite songs.
Oh, really?
It is a beautifully crafted song with a phenomenal chorus. So good. I just thought, no, I've got to play this clip. So here's the clip.
Not everybody has a right to be living their lives. Oh, but we're a long, long way from paradise. If there is freedom, tell me why everybody wants to fight. Oh, 'cause we're a long, long way from paradise. You might be strong enough, you might be rich enough, you might be blind enough to push it all aside. No matter what you do, it keeps coming back to me and you. Give a little bit of love and you get it back. Give a little bit of pain, caught in a trap. Every little thing that you say or do, give a little bit of love and it'll come back to you.
Absolutely. So it's a brilliant song.
Thank
So
you.
big inspiration for me as a writer.
Thank you. Yeah, it was partly about my relationship with Siobhan, you know.
Really?
Yeah, partly. Yeah.
Wow, that's
But
amazing. Well,
some of it, but then it transcended and went in, and that's how part of it started, you know, that idea about give a little bit of love and you get it back. It'll
Yes.
pain, you're caught in a trap.
Yeah.
But then it transcended it into a song about society, you know, and about all the, you know, how we're such a long way from where we need to be as a human race.
Right. Nice mix, putting that together, and it became like this magical song.
It did.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
So you have collaborated with legendary artists such as, you know, we talked about Eric Clapton. You've been working with Elton John, Aretha Franklin. So these must have been like incredible experiences. So what was it like writing with them overall?
Well, I only wrote with Eric. I did session work with Aretha and Elton on my Jewel album after Shakespeare's Sister ended.
Yeah.
But with Eric, you know, I was in the band, like I said, with my friends that I mentioned earlier from Tulsa, and it was my first foray into being taken seriously as a songwriter. You know, I'd written before that, but not really like professionally and as visible as this. Oh, wow. Now I'm writing with Eric Clapton, which was cool. And it started by me and Dick Sims, a keyboard player who I mentioned earlier. We presented Eric with a song called Hungry, and he really liked it. And so it ended up on the No Reason to Cry album. And then Eric and I wrote Innocent Times together. That was the first one that we wrote together. He came up with the music and I just started singing stuff, and he liked it. And then it was good.
That's so cool.
It happened so organically, you know, because I was in the band and touring for like 5 years, and then other opportunities came along, like with Lay Down Sally and the Core, you know.
You co-wrote Lay Down Sally, isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. I didn't know that until I was kind of looking through the Wikipedia stuff, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. How did that collaboration happen?
Well, I was in Eric's band, and we were over in England, and we were recording at Olympic Studios, which was like one of the greatest studios of all time, where everybody has worked. Yeah. But we were in the middle of the album, and sometimes Eric would come in with ideas, and sometimes, you know, it was Eric. I mean, he could just do whatever he wanted to, really, you know. So one day he came in and said, hey, Marcy, I want to write a song called Lay Down Sally. And so I picked up a guitar, and at that time we were all really into this band called Little Feat, and they were into like doing like this New Orleans style, what do you call it? Bo Diddley groove that went
Nice.
up, up, up,
Yeah.
up. And so I just started playing guitar, and I just grabbed that melody out of the air. I mean, sometimes I don't know what happens. There's like an artistic ether, and you just
It just came down.
Yes.
you just grab it and go with it. Right?
Yeah.
So I came up with that melody for Lay Down Sally, and we worked on the song for, I want to say 5 or 6 hours, and it was George, Terry, the guitarist, and Eric and I. So we had the chorus. We nailed that, and I love to start with the chorus. It's the most important part of the song. It's like the concept. It's the impetus.
Right.
So we had that, but we couldn't really come up with a good verse for it for some reason. Nothing sounded good. Nothing sounded right. So then all of a sudden, Eric, after 5 hours, and the keyboard player had left, he went to the hotel. And then all of a sudden, Eric started playing that kind of J.J. Cale groove. And the producer, Glenn Johns, is like, oh, this sounds really good. We got to record this right now. And so everybody, you know, Jamie's playing the drums, and Carl's on bass, and George and Eric are playing away. And I actually got it on the keyboard. I mean, I don't really play that well, but I played the keyboard because Dick wasn't there, and I had a really simplistic part. If you listen to the record, you'll hear it. It's just like, wow, that's really simplistic. But they didn't replace it, so I guess it had to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
After we recorded it, they gave me a cassette, and Eric was like, okay, go back to the hotel and write the verses and the melody. There was no melody for the verses at that point. It's like, okay, go back to the hotel and write it. And I came back with the melody, the lyrics and melody the next day, and we recorded it. And several months later, it was climbing the charts.
It certainly did. I mean, it's like, it's massive.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Wow.
Yeah.
Iconic.
That's amazing. And so I also, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you more than anything, right? So I sat from morning until the evening watching Live Aid from start to finish on my television. Okay, I'd love to say I was there, but I wasn't. But it was still brilliant. And I know you played Live Aid, didn't you, with Eric Clapton?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, what was it like backstage with all of these amazing people?
Yeah, I'm getting chills just even thinking about it, because we were on the middle. That was the second time I was in Eric's band. I was asked to join his band again in '84 because I wrote a song with my friend Richard Feldman, who I mentioned earlier, songwriter, and Eric liked the song, so I ended up joining the band again. But we were in the middle of a tour in the States, and Eric got the call from Bob Geldof's company, management and stuff. Can you guys do Live Aid? Come and do Live Aid in Philadelphia. So Eric was like, yeah, we all got on a commercial flight and flew to Philadelphia. And the excitement in that city, I can't tell you what it was like. It was electrifying. It was incredible. So on that, we got there the day before, but on the day, I saw Chrissy Hind in the elevator, and then at the show, like back behind the scenes, I see Madonna walking around with Sean Penn, and it was incredible.
You're like,
okay,
yeah, it was wild.
Another dimension.
It was incredible to actually do it, because we were waiting for Phil Collins he had just done his bit at Live Aid in London. And so he wanted to join us in Philadelphia. It was like, I want to get on Concorde and I want to fly over and join you guys in Philly. And I had met Phil when I worked on the album Behind the Sun, where Eric did my song Tangled in Love, and that's how I rejoined the band. So
Wow.
I had met Phil. I knew him and worked with him as well. So anyway, we're all there and we're getting ready to go on stage, but we had to wait for Phil to get there because his plane is late. Concorde.
Was it going to say Concorde is late?
Concorde was late. So we're waiting for his helicopter, and it finally arrives. So we all get up on the stage. It's a revolving stage. The act before finishes up. You're all in place, and then there's a big curtain that's drawn, and then the stage revolves around. So we were on the stage. Phil got there, runs onto the stage. The stage is revolving around, and then it stops, and the curtain opens. And I mean, the sound that the crowd made, it was like about 100,000 people.
Wow.
Not to mention
Crazy.
millions that were watching around.
Oh, yeah. I was
Yeah.
one of them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Glued. I was glued.
It was so cool. I mean, the sound that the audience made was just incredible. And I remember Eric, who doesn't seem to really be fazed by anything, but I always stood like, stage right. So I was to his right. So I remember hearing that noise and we were like, oh, it took our breath away. And I looked at him and we went, whoa. And I went, whoa. I think you could even see us doing that at the beginning if you watched the DVD.
Yeah. Wow.
But
I've actually got that. I actually bought the DVD. So I had to, because it was such, I don't know, it was just something that would never be repeated again. It was like a one-off.
Yeah, I believe
It was phenomenal. And I think it must be amazing for you to be able to say, I was part of that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm
That's
really
amazing.
grateful.
Yeah,
Very
that's
grateful
amazing.
for it.
Wow.
I'm super interested to to ask you this because you've been backstage with like many legends. You're a legend yourself, so you're part of that. But what is the most funniest thing you've seen backstage that you can actually share with us?
Oh, funny. I'm trying to think. Well, there were so many. There were so many like incredible experiences, not just backstage, but partying with other musicians. But I'm trying to think of specific backstage stuff that stood out. Well, I remember just hanging out after the shows. People would, notables would come and see Eric. They were good pals of his, like people from the Rolling Stones, and like Ronnie Wood used to hang around a lot, and John Fogerty came to see us in LA, and I mean Jeff Beck. I mean, he had so many friends. They were all like the Mutual Admiration Club.
No.
He was friends with them all, and he was him. So yeah, it was just some great times. I can't remember anything specifically funny, except I can tell you one thing that happened to me once. My singing partner, Sean Murphy, who's an amazing singer who I got to be on the tour with us in '85. She and I went shopping, and I bought this rubber dress. And I thought that would be a good idea to wear it on stage. But after about 3 songs, the sweat was like pouring in pools down the back of my legs. And
Wow.
and so we always have like a break in like maybe we do 3 or 4 songs, and then we leave the stage and Eric would do a few things with the band. So I had time. I was like, I've got to go take this dress off. I'm going to die in this dress. I'm losing so much sweat.
Oh, no.
Wow.
So I was running after the song, where the break came. I ran down. I was like to the manager, I got to get in the dressing room. And they couldn't find the key. And I'm like hurrying and rushing around to try and get a key to change out of the dress. And it was panic. And I thought, what am I going to wear? I want to do a costume change, but I found a dress that was like similar to the one that I had on, but it was not nearly as confining, and it was not going to kill me in the process. So I made it in time, but that was a bit of a harrowing experience. But, there was always some craziness. Not too much before the show. It was all pretty mellow. Everybody would be doing their thing, preparing. Girls, we'd be doing our makeup. Eric would be hanging out with the guys, and they'd be, practicing and doing whatever. We'd be doing our vocal exercises. That was always pretty mild, and to be expected.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It was later at the after.
I was going to say later at the after parties. The
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Studio 54?
Huh?
With like, did you ever go to Studio 54?
No, I never went to studio.
No.
I wish
Okay.
I
Okay.
had. Yeah, but we were in
I've
New
heard
York
many
City,
things.
and we hung out with the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger and Bianca when they were married. He came to the Two Electric Ladies studios where we were recording, and we went to loads of parties with the Stones. You know, they loved Eric and he loved them. So there was some crazy parties with some
I
crazy
can
stuff going
imagine.
on.
Yeah. I would love to be a fly on the wall at those parties.
Yeah.